Hey, it's Jeff again. I haven't gotten a whole lot of sleep lately. I've been so creative. I feel like if I get this one off my chest, I'll be able to get some sleep tonight. So I wanted to do a video on psychosis, or woo-woo. So psychosis is classified as detachment from the outside world from the internal world of the brain. Generally comes with hallucinations or loss of contact with reality. Delusion seemingly irrational is a seemingly irrational belief that arises without good evidence and is held in a way that seems to be impervious to evidence that contacts it. How do healthy people process the world, their reality, when they can't actually see, touch, taste, hear, smell it? In other words, the brain is closed off to the outside world and comes and is fed info from these senses. Also, how can an artistic, smart, seemingly together person say that they can see through the cracks or see hidden meaning in things like television, radio, and newspaper, and verbal, visual, and even telepathic forms? Being able to see around the corner, how is this possible? Alright, back to the healthy brain. Healthy brains are in a sense of psychosis every day. The healthy brain needs to be able to predict the world, to be successful and survive. In order to do this, the brain has to build an internal model of the external world. This is obviously where it gets tricky, or woo-woo. We don't have direct contact with this outside world. Like I mentioned earlier, we have the illusion of direct contact, the illusion of reality. Vernon Mantcastle was a neuroscientist, and he said in 1976, each of us lives in the universe or prison of their own brain, projecting from it millions of fragile sensory nerve fibers, arranged in groups uniquely adapted to sample the energetic states of the world: heat, light, force, chemical composition. That's all that we can know directly. We bring in these energetic states through perception. It's an act of imagination, which are impressions on our nerve fibers. We then have to imagine what caused those. We back project to the cause of the sensation that we have. This is considered abductive inference or abduction. Evidence to the cause of the evidence, which means we have to reason backwards. This is a very shaky, fragile, tenuous form of logical inference that one could have, or woo-woo. Think you're so logical. Charles Peirce referred to it as guessing. The reason it's considered guessing is that for many given sensory experiences that we have, there are a myriad or unlimited number of possible causes that could have brought rise to that. We are stuck having to make a decision about what could have been the cause. We put it as the whole fabric of our knowledge is a matted He put it as the whole fabric of our knowledge is a matted felt or pure hypothesis. We seem to be pretty good at this. Bayes' theorem points out the optimal way to do this is to take the evidence and combine it with what you already know, your prior experience and expectations, resolving the ambiguity in this fashion. An example of this is you have the tip-tap of the toenails hitting a wood floor and you can't see what's coming around the corner. You confidently expect to see a dog walk around the corner. The evidence you have doesn't tell you that necessarily. I mean, it could be a lion or a tiger or a wolf that got into the house rather than your dog. The evidence itself is ambiguous. It's your prior knowledge that it's probably the dog walking around the corner and not a predator. That's the notion that we apply to the world. There's evidence that this inference also appears to us in a much lower unconscious perceptive level, and we are doing it all the time. This happens visually, auditorily. If the process is active enough for us to be able to suppress the noise and recognize the signal and remove the ambiguity, then is it also active enough to create perceptions? We are prone to form our own perceptions. Here's an example of hallucination in action. I made a little demonstration that I got from TED Talks. It appears that there's a triangle, but that's an illusion. So there isn't actually a triangle here or two. It's just implied from your combination of what you know and what you perceive this to be. There is subjectively no triangle here. There's no border, no perimeter. You are seeing something that is not subjectively there. Like we said earlier, this is a hallucination in action. Ivan Helmholtz describes it as perception itself is a controlled illusion. Woo-woo. No matter how logical you think you are. This is a balance of what we already know and the perception coming in. Some circumstances we don't have any expectations, and others we have these prior expectations and we will weigh them. This is an example of the mechanism to begin to understand the emergence of phenomena like hallucinations. It's pretty cool. We all define ourselves as the internal model of the world. We all define ourselves in the internal model of the world. As we see ourselves on the internal is what we project our world to be. So we define ourselves in place with each other in terms of shared models of the world. If somebody is building a model that isn't shared by the whole world, it's a very isolating experience because their reality becomes different. This is an example of me. I'm completely different than anybody I know. I'm trying to find a reflection out there, but so far people think I'm woo-woo. My personal opinion on this is that if one has a separate model of the world, like all the greatest inventors, philosophers, etc., if they can show their model somehow, they can invite others into a maybe better reality or maybe a worse reality. Thanks, Paul Fletcher, scientist. He is a speaker from TED Talks that I really liked. He is a scientist who has worked with artists to catch these in action, the collision of worlds and their perceptions. Watch his video on TED Talks titled Bending Reality to See Around the Corners. Pretty cool. I liked it. If I told you why I can see around the corners in lots of situations, you would think I'm woo-woo. Maybe in future videos I'll give you some examples of how I've been able to know things that are either going to happen or, not serious far in the future, but I know what I know. And that's all I know. So, hope you enjoy the video. Have a great night. Bye.